now, this year, whilst I have been Lord Mayor of London, it has been possible for me to carry out what has long been in my heart, the establishment of a home and college where crippled children can be received, treated for their disease, educated, and taught a practical method of getting their living in the future.
Sir William actually had a relatively modest childhood himself, but I think maybe it was that which made him more aware of some of the challenges that other people were experiencing. He was quite an unusual character for the time, and his attitude in wanting to sort of help disabled people, but also to provide an education so that they could become sort of independent, was not the general consensus amongst sort of Victorian and Edwardian society at the time.
Treloar was a very, very kindly man. Sadly, he and his wife had no children. They did bring up a nephew and a girl called Florence, who took their name, Florence Treloar. When he was in London, being an alderman and so on, he obviously noticed in those days, if you couldn't get into a school, you probably didn't get any education. So he started with the hampers at Christmas and so on, and then migrated on from there.
And the first year they took the hampers on, they handed out 200. 4 years later, they were handing out 7,000. That, in a nutshell, gives you the drive, the capacity and the commitment of this team. Sir William at the front, with Annie behind, supporting him and pushing him on.
He was quite inventive in the ways in which he approached fundraising. One of the things he did to raise funds for the school was to write the preface for a special edition of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Dickens was somebody that he was particularly a fan of because his novels offer a really sort of insightful social commentary into what Victorian society was like at the time. And he really plays on the sort of characters of people like Tiny Tim in the book to appeal to sort of Christian sympathies. So when the students first came to Treloar's, there were obviously two different parts to the hospital and the college, which was for slightly older students. So it would depend on which part you were assigned to. If you came to the hospital, when you first arrived, you might actually spend a few days in observation just so that the medical staff could work out what course of treatment you would need and start to plan your education as well. And then once you were on the wards, your school day would be a mixture of sort of formal education, so things in reading and writing and arithmetic, as you might expect. But there was also a big focus upon various different handicrafts, so things like basket weaving, embroidery and sewing, because it was understood that that was quite a good way of helping students to build up dexterity and sort of muscle strength and things like that. All of the orthopaedic equipment was actually made on site by the students themselves. So these were highly skilled work that the students were undertaking. There was a huge focus upon trying to ensure that once these young people left school and college, they would be able to be financially independent, because at the time, opportunities for employment for disabled people were far more limited than they are today. As the reputation of the school spread, and it was seen to be doing very, very good work, there was actually quite a long waiting list for students to be able to come to the hospital and to come to the school. So you would get pupils coming from every county in England and Wales. There was an example of one boy, when his family eventually came to visit him, actually didn't recognise him and came and visited with the wrong pupil instead. And the reason for that was because when a lot of the students would first come to the school, they would be quite frail in appearance, possibly very, very unwell. And the conditions at the hospital and the school were created to promote good health. So there was a real focus upon making sure that the young people had a balanced diet and had plenty of food, lots and lots of fresh air compared to the sort of smoggy, polluted conditions of the cities. So it was all designed to try and encourage them to be much healthier. The sort of primary condition which was being treated at the hospital was tuberculosis, which is obviously not something that we encounter in today's society very often at all. But it was a disease primarily associated with people from the working classes because of their sort of poorer living conditions and malnutrition being a sort of a breeding ground for disease spreading. So a lot of the young people who came would have been from poorer families.
We've got a mini museum of Sir William's artefacts, some of these beautiful caskets with an English enamel on the top, but they're made of solid silver, which he'd done some wonderful work and someone wanted to recognise him, so they gave him as a gift. We have trowels where he laid the foundation stones in children's homes all around, from Leicestershire all the way down to Hampshire. He was a mover and a shaker, and people recognise that. We're proud of the awards that Sir William got because he's the measure of the man. He obviously is our man, he's our image. We have been going 110 years. There's more than 20,000 people have been through our doors that we've helped in a positive way just because of this guy. We've fundraised millions of pounds over the years because of the legacy he left us. And to see that he opened children's homes and that we've got the trowel made of solid silver, that's how much they appreciated him.
What's really interesting about studying a school like this is that you really see changes in approaches, not only in terms of how the curriculum changes, but also changing attitudes towards disability and a changing understanding of what disabled people are capable of and the contribution that they make to society. One of the problems that I encounter a lot in my research about disabled people is that they are often absent in a lot of the sort of official records that are kept. And one of the reasons for that is because those perspectives from disabled people themselves were not necessarily considered worthwhile saving. So that really does reflect quite a change in attitude to how we see disabled people today, because in the past disabled people were perhaps understood not necessarily to make a huge contribution to society. And this is something which is starting to change in this period where the school is founded, but certainly in contemporary society today has shifted considerably.
It was very interesting, and finding out things to do with the history of Treloar's. I found out why Gavane House is called Gavane, because the first healthcare commissioner was called Henry Gavane.
My name is Phoebe. I've been a student at Treloar's for 5 years. My favorite thing about Treloar's is helping me to talk to people more confidently.
On the 9th of November next, I cease to be Lord Mayor of London, and I hope to devote the remaining years of my life to carrying on the work which has been commenced this year, the work of saving the life and restoring the health of the afflicted little ones of our country. Everyone can help, and I ask everyone to do so.